Okay, so I've got my very messy floor plan there, which I'm going to now make a bit more organised. I don't have the stair there showing in the middle that you all, I'm sure, do have. I've got it in another file, of course, so I'm simply going to model in now some walls just to block out that area, because I know it's roughly about this size. That'll do. And the beautiful thing about Revit is that I can select those walls. I'm just holding down control. So let's do 1, 2, 3 with control. And then in properties, change the base level from the level that I've drawn, and that's level 1, to ground floor. And then I'll go to my ground floor floor plan, and I can see my walls there. Get rid of these stairs, I don't want them anymore. And I'll make sure you know a couple of basic little tricks. When I select a wall, the arrow keys, if you're not using those, they're a great way of just nudging things around. And when I say I love AutoCAD, I really do, but I wish it would have the arrow keys. I know it's a bit sad loving a program, but it is a beautiful drawing tool. Revit, though, has this great option, which AutoCAD still doesn't have, of using the arrows to nudge. So make sure you know about that. And now I can check with the plan that I have my image inserted into and just get those walls lined up with where the stairs, well, the void for the stairs or the stairwell is. And so now I'll go to my level 1 floor plan again, and I can start just blocking in the layout I want for my design. And so again, you've got these pre-made walls that should do almost everything you need, and the stud, well, I'll ask you, for residential construction, what sort of partitions, in other words, what sort of interior walls are you going to use 99% of the time? Stud steel or stud timber? Steel? You'd think so. In the old days, actually, they were heading towards that, but it's back to timber now for most things. Environmentally, it's a borderline call, but timber still has probably got the edge environmentally. So stud timber for residential also doesn't make as much noise as steel. So then I'm going to just quickly do a rough layout for my apartment plan. So then I've got you know, an area laid out for it, and then maybe I'll get a couple of walls for the bedroom, or maybe I'll do 2 bedrooms down here. I'm not doing anything too complicated. And another wall there that divides them up. So nothing too tricky, but I've got a basic plan there, and I'll put some doors in. Let's get a better door than that. Okay, super simple, but then I've got a hole in my floor which I don't want anymore, so I'll just get rid of that too. Okay, so I've got the most basic plan in the world, but that is enough for a simple apartment, and I'll then go and use the component tool and then click Load Family to get some, I'll start with some casework, and then there you'll see you've got things like base cabinets for kitchens. And I'll get, let's start with the corner cabinet. That'll do. And then again, back to Load Family, and I can just keep choosing from that same folder. Notice that's a bit smaller than it might have looked in the preview, but so make sure you're always looking in properties to see the different options you've got for the different sizes of these families. And you'll see in a minute how this all relates to lighting. So I've got a few cupboards there just to do a very simple kitchen. And it helps with your space planning. Once you've got some things that you can relate your overall scale to. So the doors help, cabinets of course, we know the size of those things. And then again back to Load Family, and I might just get some other more typical furniture. From the furniture folder, we've got tables and chairs. Let's try that one, I've never used that before. That's a new one. A bit ugly actually, but let's try it. And so I'll go back to Load Family and show you again the folder on the P drive. In interior design, we've got the Revit library that we've made. So what I might show you now, you can make your own shortcuts. If you drag that folder over to the bar on the left, it'll put a shortcut there. You can just click on to always go to that folder. So here you can see I've got a lot more furniture that I've added that you can use. I think I've shown you this before. And so I'll just get some lounge chairs from there. Where's my lounge chairs? Got a few. That's not it. Ah, that's it. Okay, so very simple plan, but now I'm going to switch to the ceiling plan. So if you haven't seen it already, the ceiling plans are always there. They're made automatically. So I've got my level 1 ceiling plan, and you need to use those to create your ceilings. So this is done when you've got that ceiling plan open using the ceiling tool. And if you've got enclosed spaces like this, you can see as I hover over those different rooms, it detects those rooms, and then you usually can just click to create a ceiling. So I'm just going to click once inside each of those rooms. So then, how do I know the ceiling's there? Any ideas? So if you think you've made a ceiling, exactly, that's right. It's a vertical element, or yeah. So that's the way you should be thinking. That's really good. So I've got a section here that's cutting through my bedrooms, but I'm going to make a new section that goes through the area that I want to look at, through my lounge room. And now in properties, sorry, in the project browser, I can go down and find that new section. It'll be section 5, and I can see my ceiling there. And just like the walls, I can use the arrow key on the keyboard just to nudge that ceiling up and down. And you can always type in a height in properties. Let's say 3,500. You've got the room to have generous ceiling heights. And it's a thing that's really coming back. I don't know why. Well, we know why. To save money from the, when was it? The 50s, really. That's when building went terrible and cheap. And the 40s, actually, that's when they basically went broke and had to start building really cheaply. And the buildings from before then, of course, they had a bit more money and had much more generous ceilings. And we're going back to that. And these days, most councils want you to do at least 2,700. But I know they're letting you, for this project, go to 24 if you really want to. But generous ceilings are good if you can have decent ceiling heights. So, if we go back to the perspective view that I made earlier, what's going on there? So when you see a perspective like this, what do you think might be happening? If I've added some walls into that level, maybe that's what we're looking at. My camera's in a wall, yep, or behind a wall, but probably, yeah, it is in the middle of a wall. So how do we find out where the camera is? If you remember, go back to the plan where you can see it, and then coming back down to the perspective that I've given the name to, I'll right click and go to show camera, and I can see then, well, it's actually just behind the wall, but I can move the camera there to a better place. So it's not in a wall or behind a wall. And then back into the perspective, there we are, and we can see all that furniture. And more importantly, I can see the ceiling. And so then to finish off now with the ceiling, I can put the lights in on the, again, level 1 ceiling plan. And I'm emphasising that because what people often do when they start to work with ceilings is think about the level that it's closest to. It's a natural thing. So this ceiling, it's actually closest to level 2. And so you think, right, I'm going to go to the level 2 ceiling plan. But of course that's going to look up to this roof, which isn't what we want. So again, level 1 ceiling plan, component, just like I did for the furniture, load family, and if you've set your ceilings up, lighting is easy. In the lighting folder, we've got all sorts of basic lights. I'll just use the downlight recessed can. And I've already loaded it, so it's telling me, do I want to overwrite? And I'll say yes, overwrite. Now, this is a good thing for you to see. Have you seen that before when you've gone to load a family, that it then comes up with something else? And it's just a Revit thing. It's because the programmers, they basically won the battle at Autodesk, and they're fussy people. They think if you've loaded the family before, you should remember that and choose it from the list over here. It's there. I just need to go and find it. So I know it was called downlight recessed can, and there it is. So we've got all these different options. I'll just choose the first one. It doesn't really matter which one. And so that's basically half the battle, just getting to the point where you can see the light. And if you don't have a ceiling, it'll come up like this, with the error symbol. But if you do have a ceiling, it's simple. There we are. Click, 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 click. So I'll go back to my perspective view. Where are we? Level perspective. And bring up the rendering dialog box. And then the only setting I need to change here is that lighting scheme to artificial only. Don't be tempted to go straight to sun and artificial, because if you don't know, the sun is thousands of times brighter than any man-made light source. Even lighthouses, which are ridiculously bright, are nowhere close to the sun. And you'll see that if you do photography. It's just really difficult to relate the two. So sun and artificial is difficult to work with. Artificial only is what you should be starting on. Click render. And it shouldn't take very long. There we are. So it's rendering, but then often people think, oh no, it's not working because it's too dark. But what do we do to adjust the brightness of any render? Exactly, always exposure is how you should be thinking for control, and a bit slow, but normally shouldn't take too long. Funny old thing, they add some weird families to the library. That's a new one. Okay, so just exposure and then taking it up a bit brighter, and there we are. So maybe those cabinets aren't the most interesting thing to be looking at, so I might go back to my level 1 floor plan this time. Again, right click on my perspective name that I've given, show camera, and I can always drag the camera from one side of the room to the other, flip it around the other way. No problem with that. So I'll show you one last little trick, so I don't have to go back and find the view in my list here if it's selected. It's the same with most things in Revit. You can right click and choose go to view to open up any view that you've got selected. And I might just widen the field of view there by dragging out the sides, so I've got a bit more width to my view. And I render it. And it's going to have the same render settings as before because it's the same camera. Okay, so Saul's going to be back in a minute to go through the presentation, but actually, do you want to know how to do posters, decals or stickers or paintings on a wall? No? Yeah? It's a good thing to know. I mean, you can always do it in Photoshop. Yeah, no, yeah, do you want to know? Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's fine in Photoshop, and sometimes that's the best way, but there's a really good tool in Revit that does it in 3D, which I can show you pretty quickly, if you've been comfortable with the textures that I've shown you. Okay, so simple thing. I'll firstly turn the shadows off just so I can see. And it's, again, on the Insert tab, and you've got this cool tool called Decal. So does anyone know what a decal is? No? I had to look it up when I first came across this. It's a sticker. Decal just means sticker. So here, if you click Place Decal, you'll get this, and you click on the New button, give it a name, so let's call it Poster. Hit Browse, and choose any file, just like the textures and the materials we've been looking at, any image file. And I've got a folder there you can use with a lot of paintings that I like. They're all old, of course. So here we go, Kandinsky, who I used to love, and there we are. So that's it. And click to place them. If you want to adjust it, it's best just to cancel and then select it again, and you can, you know, make it whatever size you want. And it makes things much more interesting if you've got something on those big flat surfaces to look at. And the nice thing is, if you do it in 3D, when you render, the lighting and everything else is taken into account. If you do it in Photoshop afterwards, you've of course got to do that yourself. So maybe I'll just finish up with one little thing. What's wrong with that image? Apart from the fact that it's a boring design, but what's the technical thing that's pretty wrong with the lighting? Without thinking too hard about it, right? The colour, yeah. What's wrong about the colour? It is the colour. Yeah, it's too yellow, too orangey yellow, too warm in other words. And that's, again, something you can adjust using your exposure control. So, once that's done, come on, should be finished. There we are. So, adjust exposure. So, it's this one down the bottom, white point, that you use to change the temperature. I'm going to make it a bit cooler. Click Apply. That's still not quite enough, so I'll just drag it a bit more. Apply. And maybe at the same time make it a bit brighter, because it's a bit dull and dark. There we go. And your eyes will tell you when it's, you know, when it's right. You can actually feel your eyes sort of saying it's better to look at. There we are. So, far better. That's it. So, final thing, to save it, save the project, to save it in Revit, but don't forget you're going to be adjusting these in Photoshop, definitely, so always export and make sure you know where you're saving those files, that you've done all the work to render. And you should be good to go. Where's my folder? There it is. That'll do. Done. So, I don't know if you've got any questions, or is that something you can try? Yep. Sorry? Oh yes, I'll come over. Yep, sure. Okay, yep, sure. No, we've got plenty of time. Saul's still going to go through some things, but yeah, it'll be a minute.